Going live. We're live. Hello, everybody. We are live. Welcome to Keira Davis Live. Isn't that a clever title for y'all? We are live today. Thank you for showing up. If you're just getting into the chat room, welcome, welcome. Drop your comments. Everybody's welcome. Even idiots are welcome, but idiots will be treated accordingly, just so you know. I want to thank everybody who's been tuning in for the last few weeks. This just started out as an experiment, really. I love talking. Anybody who knows me knows this. I never shut up. And this is why this industry is a great industry for me. And I've been exploring different ways to be able to talk to people, to say what I want to say without necessarily having to write a 1,200 word op-ed on it. I love my community over at Davis Nation, davisnation.locals.com. If you want to join us, I love us over there because that's another place for me to talk. And soon enough, Locals is going to be venturing out into more live streaming opportunities and more video content creation that you can do right on the site. So we won't always be beholden to people like YouTube, um, for our views and all of that. So definitely check out Locals. Check out my page, of course, davisnation.locals.com. What else do I have to share with you tonight? Well, let's just put this out here that we're live. We're live now. Come on over. Today I wanted to talk to you. By the way, happy Mother's Day. Did you have a good Mother's Day? I had a really good Mother's Day. My husband made salmon eggs Benedict. Just typing the chat room. Salmon eggs Benedict. I love eggs Benedict. I love eggs. I love all things eggs. And I love eggs Benedict. So he made me salmon eggs Benedict and mimosas. And then I went to get a massage and it was really, really nice. I hope you had a great Mother's Day or birthing People's Day, as it is known, unfortunately, in some corners of the United States. I enjoyed myself. I was happy to have the time off, back to it this week, and we got a lot to talk about this week. I want to talk to you guys about the recall election, what's going on here. Hi, Liz, welcome. What's going on here in California, what we can see moving forward, and what do I think about the candidates because they're so far, because there is a lot of chatter on the internet, particularly from conservatives who seem very disappointed with the field so far. So definitely tune in. You want to hear it from me, all right? There's a lot of chatter going on Twitter and the internet about what's happening here in California, but I can guarantee you that if you don't live here, you don't have the full story, because as crazy as you think California is, it's nowhere near as crazy as what it really is. If you live here, you find out real quick how insane everything is. But today, Gavin Newsom released a statement. Today, he said that they're going to be he announced, a new round of state stimulus spending. And he said, I mean, His Highness was so generous and so great that he has decided that we are allowed to, those of us in the middle class will be allowed to receive $600 checks from the stimulus package. First of all, I want y'all to know that this is more than a slap in the face. This is a big, giant middle finger from Gavin Newsom to the middle class. But Gavin Newsom thinks that it's an olive branch because he knows he's in trouble and it's upsetting him, right? There's only been, I think in the history of California, there have been 42 recall elections. I mean, generally speaking, not just gubernatorial, but like for assembly seats and for, I think, bills and stuff like that. So I think the total is something like 43. Only 2 have ever succeeded. Gavin Newsom is set to make history. If he is recalled, he is set to make history as one of the few people in California that have been recalled. That's a scary legacy. It's not a legacy he can afford. He has every intention of moving up the pipeline to DC. The California to DC pipeline is a real thing. I know a lot of people would like to imagine that that's conspiratorial, that that is just kind of like tinfoil hat, or that it's just in theory, that it's just an analogy. No, the California to DC pipeline is real. And I'll tell you how I know that and where I learned it. I learned it this past year when I was embroiled in the battle against AB5, which there are still many people who are working to eliminate it. AB5 is a national version of PRO Act. It instituted this weird ABC test, which basically makes independent contracting illegal, which is the point. They wanted to get at Uber and Lyft because they didn't like that Uber and Lyft were successful with their contracting model. And instead, Uber and Lyft got out from under it by supporting a ballot measure that Californians overwhelmingly approved because no one in their right mind would make it illegal to have a side job. We approved it, but the cruel, evil monsters who work in the California Assembly, led by Lorena Gonzalez, decided that even though that bill didn't get the people that it meant to get, they're still going to leave it in place. Now, there's been dozens and dozens of carve-outs from this bill because every group that depends on gig contracting, like actors, like singers, like writers, like me, podcasters, DJs, nurses, security guards, sign language interpreters, truckers, every group, which is almost all of California that depends on independent contracting to survive, has had to go and get this carve out. And they keep carving out pieces of the law, but they won't repeal it. So I so AB5 has already caused a lot of problems here. It is a big, big deal. And you'll notice that AB5, which I just told you, is in the PRO Act, right? There is a reason for that. There is a direct pipeline between DC and California. So when I was working on the AB5 issue, I was talking to some contacts up in Sacramento, about 3 or 4 people I regularly talked with. Most of them were staffers, high-level staffers in Sacramento, longtime staffers, and to a person. They all told me, "Kira, this is what Californians don't realize. Sacramento is a mob town. That means it's basically run by the mob, and the mob is the unions, specifically the teachers' unions. It's basically a mob town. You can't get anything done here without the blessing of the unions. But the other thing is that it is a goal, not just here, but nationwide. It is a stated goal by California Democrats. Even the Democrat, Lorena Gonzalez, who crafted this law that is now going into your national policy. Lorena Gonzalez is the woman who crafted it. Even she said, we have the records, it's there to prove it. Even she said the goal with this law, meaning AB5 at the time, the goal with this law is to make every person who's working a W-2 employee and then make every W-2 employee a union member, and everybody else can go on the dole. It's not an accident that you're seeing that pop up in Washington, D.C. That is a stated union goal. And in fact, this issue of the PRO Act, do you know how important it is? I know this is going to sound real tinfoil hatty, but I promise you I'm telling you the truth. And you just do a Google search. You could look it up yourself if you're curious enough. The PRO Act is not an American thing. This is actually a global union push, and other European nations have already passed it, meaning that there are many nations on this planet who call themselves free, in which a lot of people can't even participate in the side gig market. Hello, River Me Timbers. Yes, we are talking the PRO Act. Well, really what we're talking about is the California to DC pipeline, and that's why we're having to fight the PRO Act at a federal level, which we were screaming about it for 2 years, and everybody thought, that's just you guys in California. You get what you vote for. And we've been telling you guys, no, California is coming to you. Don't be so flippant about this. Help publicize this. Help us publicize our struggle. And so many people, particularly conservatives, I might say, turned their noses up at us. But what I would need you all to know about what's happening here in California, if you've never been here and you don't know what California life is like, there's a couple things you need to know. One is most of California is conservative, geographically speaking. We happen to have 3 of the most populous cities in America, and we all know how cities vote. That's not a state thing, that's not a race thing, that's not an East Coast or West Coast thing. That's a reality thing. People in the cities vote, overwhelmingly liberal, overwhelmingly Democrat. We know that. So we have 3 of the most populous cities. You go, hell, 25 minutes north of Los Angeles, you are in conservative territory. 25 minutes south of Los Angeles, you are in conservative territory. Most of California is still the wild, wild west. Ranch land and farmers and factory workers, blue collar workers, those are the people that make up California. By some estimates, there are about 2 million conservative voters in California who do not cast a vote each election cycle. People, we actually do have the votes to win elections here. What we don't have is the messaging. And what we don't have is an opposition party that is willing to fight and play the long game to win battles down the road. And there are all kinds of winnable issues for them to take control of right now, of this messaging, of this narrative. But I want to tell you that that pipeline between DC and California, I learned about it fighting this AB5 battle. It is very real. And in fact, as we're fighting it, proof was just pouring out. Because what happened? Kamala Harris, who is one of the worst Democratic presidential candidates in history, who was so bad that the second she had more than 30 seconds to talk on a debate stage, her campaign tanked. She was so bad, her own voters dumped her the second she had the opportunity to speak out loud. Suddenly, she's our vice presidential pick. You know, that's not an accident. Why do you think Gavin Newsom is fighting so hard here? Why do you think that this is why the GOP nationally needs to take this fight national? Because the Dems are, right? Even the damn president commented on what's happening here in California with our governor and our recall. So the GOP needs to really get in on this game because the Dems have been winning it here for too long because they were willing to play the long game. And you know what Dems don't do? They don't abandon loser bases. They figure out a way to message those loser bases so they don't seem like losers. So the GOP might feel like we're a bunch of losers here in California, but you've abandoned us. You haven't even the Dems are messaging nationally on this issue. Why aren't you? You know damn well that the Dems have every intention of populating DC with California Democrats. It should scare the shit out of you. It does me. So the national GOP needs to be really thinking about this and really messaging on this and really throwing their support behind the state GOP here, which is actually starting to get it together under the leadership of some very fine women, I must add. So there's Nancy's already there, right? And who are the 3 most powerful people in DC right now? Nancy, Kamala, and yes, Maxine Waters. I know you don't like to hear it, but Maxine Waters, she chairs the finance committee. That's a very powerful position. Why do you think she's still working? That crazy old lady should be gone. She's probably too crazy to be in Congress at this point, but she's very powerful. What Kamala plans to do is when Joe finally kicks the bucket, she's going to pull Gavin in as her vice president. And then you've got DC completely ruled by California because you and I both know that Joe Biden isn't really leading. He's just a guy that says words in front of cameras occasionally. I think we've all come to whether or not you think he's suffering from dementia or some kind of other health issue, whether or not, I think we all agree that he's not much of a leader, pretty much an empty suit. Hey, Kelsey, welcome. Arnold says the same applies here in Texas. The urban areas are very liberal. The rural areas are mostly conservative. It's a misconception that Texas is very conservative. Austin, extremely liberal. Well, Arnold, sorry about Austin. I mean, I went to visit twice last year, and it was like a mini version of LA by that time. I was so sad. But this is why Texas is a really good example of why Republicans and conservatives should not be complacent. The GOP has depended on our complacency for so long. It's why we're having this battle right now. We've been having this battle for 10 years, folks. The Trumpism versus never Trumpism of the current Republican Party is not new. It is the same iteration of the fight that brought me into conservatism, which is the Tea Party versus the establishment, right? That kind of got watered down. That kind of went away for lots of good reasons. But that really was the base of the party trying to wrestle control from an establishment that took the base for granted. And for too long, this is our fault. We let the establishment say, hey, we know we're not perfect, but if you don't vote for us, look what you're going to get. You're going to get the Democrats. You don't want that, do you? And Texas is a great example of how that works. It works the same way there. There are people take for granted that Texas is red. And it's not red, by the way, it's actually purple for the reasons that Arnold pointed out, but it's, it's got a red heart. I think we can all agree on that. And, um, the Texan legislature is not full it's not full of really great, um, principled conservatives. They make anti-conservative decisions all the time because they don't think they're going to be held accountable by their electorate because every voter in Texas, statistically speaking, every voter, that's a generalization, says, well, we're conservative and we always vote conservative, so we'll vote conservative this time. And we definitely don't want the liberals in there. And so here's our reflexive conservative vote. Well, what happens is the party starts taking your votes for granted, and then they become whatever they want to become instead of staying what you demand they stay. So River Me Timber says, my favorite thing is when Joe Biden, says, oh, I better not take questions or I'll get in trouble. Like, in trouble with who exactly? Oh my gosh, River, listen. I was having dinner with a friend the other night. She just got red pilled, y'all. She was like libertarian, but more like apolitical libertarian. Like, just kind of like conservatives are always blabbing and they're just hysterical and they need to like calm down. But otherwise, she just wasn't that involved in stuff with politics. But watching what happened in the election and then the subsequent shenanigans that have been going on ever since, it red pilled her. So I met with her the other night after having not seen her in almost 2 years. And she was talking about all the things that she sees in her career that are wrong, like in her area of her industry where wokeism is just starting to creep in there. And she goes, I don't understand what people don't get about Joe Biden. He's basically screaming for help every time he's on the camera. I mean, he's saying it right to the American people. I'm going to get in trouble. Every time he goes on TV, he's telling us, I'm going to get in trouble. He's begging for our help. He's telling us that someone behind the scenes is probably beating him over the head after every time he gets out of some press conference. She cracked me up. I'm like, he is. That's exactly right. He is exactly screaming for help every time he comes on TV. He tells us every time. He's getting in trouble. Who's getting him in trouble? That is a question to ask. And maybe the media might want to ask that. In trouble from who? What was the last trouble you got into? I just thought that was a hilarious observation, River, because that's what my friend said too. I think that going back to this California to DC pipeline, I guess what I'm saying is you people outside of California, forgive the you people, but you people outside of California, I need you all to go a little easier on us inside of California because we're facing some issues that are going to affect you. California is coming to you. Look at every city and every state that has imported California policy when it comes to homelessness or when it comes to unionization or when it comes to public school, our sex ed curriculum. This is coming from us. So it's not just it's a matter of, well, just let the stupid voters deal with their own mess, which might be fine. I guess we choose to stay here and live here, so I guess we have to deal with our own problem voters in our own state. But the problem is that it's not gonna stay here, it's coming to you, and your dismissive attitude isn't helpful to us, it's helpful to Democrats. Because what's gonna happen is you're gonna be thumbing your noses at us until the one day you wake up and realize you're not allowed to be a writer anymore. You're not allowed to drive Uber Eats anymore. You're not allowed to take that side gig as a wedding photographer anymore. This is coming to you. It's coming to you. So help us fight what's happening here. And what's happening here is big. And I know a lot of you, I'm going to talk about this. Let me take a swig here of just water, people. I drank so much champagne yesterday. Mimosas, the good kind, right? With the very lopsided ratio of juice to champagne. I don't know how else you would classify it. Kelsey says San Francisco originated the safe injection sites policy, and that's been an absolute nightmare everywhere it's been implemented. You show me a safe injection site that is successful. Hey, Tommy, you show me one that is successful, and I'll write about it. I don't think it'd change my mind about it, but I've never seen one that's successful. You cannot look, y'all. One of my favorite shows on TV is Intervention. I love that show. I mean, it tugs at the heartstrings. And one of the things that the intervention counselors will always say, because they're all former addicts, one of the things they always say is when you enable people, you fuel the problem. Like when they tell people when we're doing this intervention, you have to uh, give your boundaries, right? If you don't stop using, you can't stay in my house anymore. You'll get no more money from me. You can't come use my car. You can't call me for food, like whatever it is, whatever boundaries you need to set. Every interventionist says the same thing. And yet politicians do the exact opposite. It's because politicians, this is why charity should not be in the realm of government. It should be in the realm of private donations and purely private help, because government will always use the mantle of charity for self-interested projects, right? For politics, for reelection. The government is an entity. It doesn't care about the individual. It's not designed to care about the individual. It can't care about the individual because it's a bureaucracy, which is why our founding fathers did everything within their means and within their power to make sure that our government was as limited as possible. Unfortunately, you cannot limit the sense of comfort that comes with societal success. And that's what we're suffering right now. Americans are so comfortable, we have forgotten what it's like to have to struggle for freedom, to have to value it. Ronald Reagan was right. We're one generation away from losing freedom. Even with our wonderful Constitution, it's useless if there's no one here to enforce it. And that DC to California pipeline is another way that Democrats are trying to undermine the Constitution. And I hate how partisan it sounds because I'm a former Democrat, right? I'm a former liberal. And the last thing I would want someone to do is to lecture me about what a bad person I am because I'm a Democrat or a liberal. And so I want to give Democrats and liberals reasons to consider what I'm saying, at least to hear this other point of view that they don't get to hear. So I hate to sound so partisan, but I do know that this is the truth. Now, maybe you like that idea. Maybe you like the idea of the whole country turning into California, which I would say I don't know what part of California you live in, but I don't think this is a good idea. Like, I hate having to be this partisan, but these are the times we live in. Everything's partisan these days. I'd love to imagine that liberals and Democrats are watching me talk and going, I don't like anything she's saying, but hey, at least she's expressing it intelligently and she's just someone who thinks differently from me. I would love that. But that's not what we're that's not the option we're being given. I'm still going to work for it, but I know, and it saddens me, but I know that in a time aided by the media where, um, your politics is considered your character. So, I'm sorry if I'm offending some Democrats and some liberals with my harsh language here, but as a former Democrat and liberal, I can only I just know what I know, you know? I just know what I know. And I know that the strategy is to bring California to DC. So, folks out there in non-California land, please, I need you to help us. Help us help us. Here's one thing you could do. Stop making fun of us. Stop telling people like me to move. I can't tell you how annoying this is. Look, I'm not a native Californian. I wasn't born and raised here. I've been here 12 years. This place is as ridiculous as everyone thinks it is. I get it. But there's also a lot of good people here and a lot of good things happening here and a lot of beauty here. And if y- I just told you California is coming to you, it's basically already there. Y'all are having to shore up your legislative processes with bills banning boys in girls' sports. That's because California came to y'all. Y'all are the ones having to scramble to get to your legislatures to shore up the election law. That's California already come to you. So stop telling people like me to move. First of all, it's ridiculous and it's insensitive, as if I could just be like, oh, I think we'll move tomorrow. You know, there's a lot in moving. In a state where almost everyone lives paycheck to paycheck, even the wealthy, it's all about what you wanna spend to have a good life here, right? Even the wealthy live paycheck to paycheck here. That's not uncommon. So you're I have to come out with moving expenses plus a first month's rent and a last month's rent or a deposit for a mortgage on a home. Like, I can't just pick up and leave people, even if that's what I wanted to do. The other factor, which I know this is gonna get me canceled, sorry, is I'm not the head of this household. That is Mr. Davis' decision, and when he makes that decision, I'll have input, but otherwise, you know, I don't live alone, and I don't get to make these decisions alone. Also, when you say that, you gotta know California's already come to you. You want people like me to be here. People like me are on the front lines, and we're the only thing standing between you and Kamala Harris, and we didn't do a good job with that. You're welcome, America. We're the only thing standing between you and Gavin Newsom right now. Y'all hear that? People like me who are left here in California to fight this fight, even in the face of ridicule from all the other conservatives out there who think California is just worthless and people who stay here are just worthless and idiots for staying here. You need people like me to stand on these front lines because Gavin Newsom is coming to you. So you can stop him here or you can welcome President Gavin Newsom someday because that is exactly the plan. But if we recall Gavin Newsom, that legacy is done. He'll have to go work for a think tank like every other failed California politician, including Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is arguably the reason we're in this mess that we are today. So get in this game, throw your support behind somebody, even if it's just the California GOP. Start bugging your senators, your state representatives to be vocal about the California recall, to make sure that this type of government doesn't come to you. That's right, Arnold. After a while, there's going to be no place left to move. Because guess what? Californians are already moving in droves. We've already flipped Austin, folks. And guess what we're doing to Boise? Ask any native Boisean what's going on up there, and they will tell you that they are enraged at the influx of Californians that are coming up there. And I have a lot of friends who are building there and moving there, and no offense to you guys, like, I get it, get out to where you can, but if I'm moving out of California, I'm not going to Boise because basically Boise is just California now. We're gonna bring all of our BS with us, and the people there know it. My husband, his business is opening a branch in Boise, and he's been up there, and they thought they were gonna send somebody from their home office to open the business, and eventually my husband was like, "No, we can't do that. We have to hire a local because they hate Californians so much up there." There's no way we can sell what we sell unless it's a local in charge. They're so mad at us. So we're already affecting Boise, Arizona. I mean, Phoenix, that traffic in Phoenix has doubled, tripled, quadrupled in the last 5 to 7 years. I've got family there. It's definitely expanding. We're coming to you whether you like it or not, which is another thing I think we talked about last week, and I'll mention it again, that if you're upset about blue state voters coming to your red state and voting blue and not changing their voting habits, I would suggest you stop complaining about it because you're not going to change how many people are leaving California unless you can change California, which would be maybe more incentive for you to help us here. But you're not going to change California. You're not going to change how people vote. So, what do you do about the blue state voters coming to your state? Start entrenching yourselves now, get in a position, get on the school board, get on your city council meeting. Over at Davis Nation on locals, we've been talking a lot about different ways. Like we've actually been having discussions like, okay, what can you do? Like, what if you can't run? Like one of our members, she's a military wife, so she doesn't know where she's going to be year to year. Can she really run for her city council? Well, probably not. But she could do things like show up to the council meetings where she lives and make sure that people know she's recording things. Or she could do things like if she's around when there's a candidate running that she likes, give up an afternoon and go stuff envelopes for that person. Like there are all kinds of things you can do to support the process. By the way, folks, I think one of the most important things you can do is be a poll watcher or a poll volunteer because we've seen what happens when we just kind of leave that process to other people. So those are things you can do without necessarily having to run for office. But you need to shore up what your things are where you live now, and you need to stop making fun of us and start helping us here in California. So what can you do for us if you're not here? Well, like I said, you can call your representative, tell them to support what's going on here in California. You can share information. It's really hard to get good information out of California, right? We run like a communist state. We basically have state-run media. The two papers of record here are basically, for all intents and purposes, the LA Times and the Sacramento Bee. And maybe San Francisco Chronicle, but is that no one's surprised with how San Francisco runs. But LA Times is basically, the legislature's diary. I think it's what a useless outlet they have become. It's so sad. There's some great culture writers over there still though. But anyways, sidebar. Um It's really hard for us to get good stories out. It's hard for us to get the word out about what's going on here in an honest way. So when you see people like me or Jennifer Oliver O'Connell over at Red State, or Jennifer Van Laar or Scott Hounsel, who are some of the other writers here that I know in California, like Katie Herzog, John Fleischman, who is Flash Report on Twitter, definitely the most influential state blogger in the state and maybe even across the country. Um, Follow those people and share what they write about California. Help us get the truth out there. Start paying attention to what's happening in your own legislative process. And so that keep yourself educated about what we're doing here. So when it comes to you, oh, it's not out of the blue. This was a plan. This came from us. As this governor's race goes on, we're going to need Victor Davis Hanson. Thank you, Kelsey. We're going to need as much support as possible. Some of you all out there like to support political candidates and political campaigns. I don't do it, but it's a reality of political life, right? Somebody's got to donate to the parties, and some of you like to do it. And so if you're that person, maybe consider once this, and I'm about to talk about this, once this field of candidates starts to tighten up here, consider choosing a candidate to financially support, or consider writing to the national GOP and telling them why they should support us. The national GOP is not playing the long game in California. They do not realize how many conservative votes are here to get. Like that Caitlyn Jenner ad was really good. Caitlyn Jenner, I mean, I'm not taking this candidacy seriously. Just like I don't take any celebrity candidacy seriously in this state. I've been through 3 elections now, 4 as a Californian, and everyone is, like, just infected with B-list celebrities. So, Caitlyn Jenner is no different. It's just that she has a bigger platform because of who she is. And fine, like, we should be grateful for that, by the way. I don't think conservatives should be complaining about that. At least Caitlyn Jenner is getting the message of what needs to be done out there, right? At least she's good for publicity. I'm with you. I'm trying to move this. I'm stuck. I'm with you that I don't I'm with you that I don't like the idea of Republicans pretending to embrace this transgender issue, and I do not, even if I use the pronouns that Caitlyn Jenner is known by these days. I also This is a problem that I do have. I don't This isn't part of the Republican platform, and there's a reason why it's not. And so I'm not suggesting that Republicans necessarily embrace gender theory or what's going on. But at the same time, if this person is going to bring a national attention positive national attention to this race, great. Let Caitlyn Jenner do it. Stop bitching about it. Because if Caitlyn Jenner goes away tomorrow, y'all ain't hearing nothing about the candidates that are running. Because you all don't want to help us get those people publicized and out there. Do you know what I mean? Like, help us. Don't just criticize us. Okay, Caitlyn Jenner, not the best candidate at all in any respect. The ad that Jenner's people made was brilliant. And if I were running the national GOP, and again, I can say this because I don't know what their finances are, and they're always going to tell you that there's not enough money, but that's what political organizations are built for, to tell you that there's never enough money. But what they should do is be investing in heavy advertisement here in the state of California and running ads like Caitlyn Jenner's ads. Nonstop. Buy them on talk radio, buy them on podcast networks. That's a big thing to get. Podcasts are huge. Buy them on podcast networks. That's what the Democrats do. Buy them on local TV stations. Start running slick ads that tell you what Gavin Newsom did wrong. Because a lot of people here, it's not that they're morons or evil. It's that they genuinely don't know all of the BS Gavin Newsom has done. That's why the French Laundry thing was such a big deal, because everybody knew it. He couldn't hide it from everybody. But when you pass acts like the Safe Schools and Neighborhoods Act, which sounds like you want safe schools and neighborhoods, but actually is an early prison release program, when you pass stuff like that, and the LA Times never reports critically on it at all, of course you think that everything's fine. And when you look around and you see homeless people on your doorstep and drug addicts masturbating in the street in front of your home, you say, and you call Gavin's office or the mayor's office and say, "What's going on here? I don't know what's going on." And they tell you, "Oh, Republicans aren't giving enough money." Well, you believe that because these people are the good guys, right? They obviously are the good guys. We just passed the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. Obviously, these people are the good guys. California voters are uninformed. They're not morons and they're not evil. Most of the people here are good people who want to do good for others and don't understand the mechanics of what we're doing. We got to educate. The Democrats do it. They message nonstop. The GOP needs to get in this game. California can be won. I believe it. California can be won if you play the long game. Get in here, start investing in. The GOP has just left us. But guess what? That was a mistake. It's the same reason why, remember 9/11, we had to take the fight to Iraq. We had to take the fight to Afghanistan. That was Bush's justification. We take the fight to where it is so that the fight stays on their soil and not ours. Well, y'all gave up and you didn't fight this battle on our soil. And then you left. And guess what happened? The terrorists came to you. The war came to you. It's not going to stop. So get in here. Put some soldiers on the front line here, National GOP. I'm appealing to you because I don't know who else is going to do it. I don't know who, you're the official opposition of the Democrat Party. So I'm appealing to you. And I understand that I don't know all the details about running a national party. And I certainly don't understand all of the details of the purview of a state party versus the purview of the federal party. I don't understand all those these details, but I do know that we've been abandoned here and the results are showing. But people like me who live here and live this reality every single day, I look around and I've never seen more people more informed. I've never seen more people more curious about what's going on. They don't understand why they're giving and giving and giving and giving and nothing is changing. It's never been more glaringly obvious in this state that leadership is wrong and doing everything wrong. This is your opportunity, GOP. Pounce. Pounce hard. Use the playbook of the progressives in this state. Flood the zone with messaging. Flood the state GOP with cash. Flood viable Republican candidates with cash. Paging Ronna McDaniel. That's right. And to an extent, you can understand why it gets like this, right? The GOP, you only have a certain amount of money to spread across races in the country. And you say to yourself, we're not going to spend these dollars on a race that we probably will lose when we can direct that money to a candidate that's solid and is going to win. We're investing in the right thing. But that is a short-term way of thinking. Those candidates that are in red districts are probably going to be just fine with a little less. And they can go and do their own fundraising. Here you're investing. I get it, but if you look at it in terms of long term. And again, I don't know all the mechanics. I'm not pretending that I do. I don't know if you have to establish a certain state program, what the law says. Figure it out and get the resources to California, because if you lose this state forever, we lose this country forever. And this state is not lost yet. And that is, I know, and I believe I've been all over the state and I have seen so many good people who just want to live and be left alone. You need to understand that most people are voting the way they're voting here, not because they're cruel or heartless or stupid. It's because they think those votes are doing good and they don't understand. There's no one here to tell them. They're not listening to conservative radio. They're not listening to Rush Limbaugh. They're not watching Fox News. If you're not watching those outlets, there's no one else here to tell them that this is why we're suffering. It's because of these horrible policies in Sacramento. This is why your kids can't go to school. This is why there's a homeless man outside pooping outside of your house. Oh, listen, my friend just texted me. She's from here in my area of Orange County, but she just went into LA for the first time since the pandemic hit. And she was like, I just got back from LA, and like scary face emoji. She was like, it is insane how, again, going back to what I said at the beginning of this broadcast, you cannot imagine how bad things are here in California until you experience it for yourself. Get off the plane in LA. Walk out the boundaries of the airport. You will barely get out of the boundaries of the airport. And the homeless situation, maybe next week I'll have to do an explainer on why the homeless situation in California is so bad and why it has nothing to do with the amount of money we give to the issue. And it has nothing to do with housing costs, even though, yes, housing costs are out of control and they are pricing people out of the market. That is not what is responsible for our homeless problem. There may be a few people, I mean, there's those exceptions, but that's not the rule. I'll explain that. I've got to get going. There's going to be no after show conversation today. I've got to go right to an editor's meeting for my day job. And thank you to my fellow editors for being flexible with my schedule. But as we move forward, just know not all the candidates are in the race yet. I haven't had the chance to tell you this. Not all the candidates are in the race yet. I'm really sick of this doom and gloom attitude that I'm seeing on Twitter right now about California politics. Oh, see, conservatives, you can't even put a good candidate up. First of all, the GOP abandoned us. Conservatism has been abandoned here. And you people criticizing us have abandoned us here. So then you got the nerve to tell us that we're such failures because we can't even put forth a viable conservative candidate? With what help? From who? Where do we go find this person? All you people do is make fun of us. Would you never come and offer to help find those people, vet those people? All the conservatives have been good conservatives have been driven out of California according to you. So where do you expect us to find this magical unicorn? California politics are different than national politics in the respect that there are some candidates we have to put up with, but we have to understand that it's not about party. It's about policy. And I'll say this really quick because I really do have to go. Um, don't freak out about Caitlyn Jenner. This is just the first of the whole field is not even decided yet. We've barely started. You're not even seeing hardly any political campaign ads on TV yet. So everybody calm the F down and let this play out as it should and encourage the GOP to support good candidates here. And help us. Don't insult us. Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, here's what you're not getting about this gubernatorial process here. It's not necessarily about who becomes the next governor. Because if we got a good next governor, that would be the anomaly, right? That would be the surprise. It's not about the governor. It's about sending a message to the National Democrat Party that the people, even in a state like California, will be heard. And you should be scared of them. It's going to send a chill across the 2022 elections. You believe me, that's why they're fighting so hard. So this is about America. This isn't just about California. So stop bitching at us and start helping. All right, guys, go to davisnation.locals.com. Look me up there. Join the community. We've got discussions going on over there. And in fact, tomorrow, I might be running an op-ed from one of our own members over there. I mean, that's the level of discussions we're having. I'm going like, oh, this is actually good. So we're having legit discussions over there and they're safe. You're not going to get censored. Join me over at redstate.com. Follow me on Twitter at Real Kira Davis. And of course, Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis, which is available wherever you find your podcasts. And I'm doing a live show this summer. So stay tuned for details on that. We'll be in Cleveland in July. Can't wait to do that. All right. My boss is going to kill me. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you next week.